Back to Breaking Ground. I'm Siddharth Talia. Now, earlier this morning, we brought you visuals of Partha Chatterjee, the TMC Industries Minister, being taken into the AIMS hospital in Bhubaneswar on a wheelchair while he was clasping his chest. The impression that went out was that he was obviously in pain and unwell. However, the panel of doctors that have now examined Mr. Chatterjee in AIMS in Bhubaneswar have said that he had no fever, his oxygen levels were up to 100%, the blood pressure was also normal, and while, of course, he may have had a chronic illness for a long time, his vitals were perfectly fine at the time that he was, in fact, taken to hospital. That, as a result of him having been admitted for medical examination while claiming that he was unwell, the Enforcement Directorate now claims that he may have ended up depriving another worthy patient of a bed on the pretext of actually claiming that he was ill. Now, these are startling claims being made with regards to Partha Chatterjee's medical condition. At the time that he was actually admitted to hospital, a medical panel of experts, in fact, examined him and said there was nothing seriously wrong with him and have now discharged him. And he will, of course, be taken back to Kolkata, where he was initially apprehended following a series of raids. Let's listen into what the doctor, in fact, had to say after having examined Mr. Chatterjee.
So we investigated and we have submitted the report to the Honorable High Court.
So is there any chest pain?
So there was not much of chest pain.
Okay.
So everything which is off, he will be discharged today.
Any kidney problem, sir?
Yeah.
Any kidney
He is a stable condition, and maybe whatever the things he is having due to the chronic illness that he is having. So nothing of in serious nature at this moment to intervene. Let us, we have. That is their diagnosis. I am not going to comment on that. So we have given, submitted. Pardon?
We don't need hospitalization.
Yes. At this moment, we will be discharged.
Let me go across to Tamal Saha for more on this. Tamal, we saw Mr. Chatterjee being wheeled into the All India Institute of Medical Sciences this morning in Bhubaneswar. He clearly seemed to be in some discomfort, but that may not necessarily have been the case based on what the panel of experts that have now examined him have said. How is the ED taking all of this?
Well, the ED would take a final call as whether he will have to be got back to Kolkata or they would be interrogating him there. But at this point in time, the fact of the matter is that he has been discharged from AIMS Bhubaneswar, clearly suggesting that he does not require any kind of hospitalization, that the chronic ailments that he has or he had can be treated with basic medicine which have already been prescribed to him. So as far as his complaint of a health ailment or what he had tried suggesting, something which has been strongly negated by AIMS Bhubaneswar, AIMS Bhubaneswar has clearly suggested that he is fit and stable, which means if you go by AIMS Bhubaneswar study, then in that case, questions can be raised on Partha Chatterjee as whether the hospitalization he went for at the state-run SSKM hospital was that all put up, or whether it was actually a health condition and he needed medical intervention. So at this juncture, Enforcement Directorate will finally take a call as whether he will be brought back to Kolkata or he will be kept in Bhubaneswar for a couple of days. But at this point in time, AIMS Bhubaneswar, the role of AIMS Bhubaneswar, which was restricted to only studying his health condition, they have studied it and they have given him an absolute clean check that he has no physical ailment, no problem at all, he is stable, he doesn't need hospitalization.
Right, and Tamal, there was something interesting that Dr. Ashutosh Biswas, who's the director of AIMS Bhubaneswar, also said. He, of course, claimed that Mr. Partha Chatterjee, all of his vitals were, of course, far better than it appeared at the time that he was wheeled in, but he did refer to a chronic medical illness that he'd been suffering for quite some time. What exactly was he referring to then?
He might have a chronic medical history. For example, he might have a diabetes or something else. But nothing has, warranted a hospitalization according to AIMS doctors. Minded, he had gone to the same hospital. He had complained about chest. He had complained about some cardiological issues, and he was admitted at the ICU in the cardiology department. So when that aspect is juxtaposed with what observation AIMS Bhubaneswar has made, they are clearly saying that the cardiology issue or the concern raised has got no concern whatsoever to their study, and thus they do not really think it warrants hospitalization at AIIMS Bhubaneswar. So whether he has got any chronic ailment or not, that's subject to further investigation, or that can be subjected to medical reports. But nothing warrants hospitalization at this point in time has been made very clear by AIIMS Bhubaneswar.
And the Enforcement Directorate, of course, will be pressing for his custody. What are their claims with regards to the genuineness of Mr. Partha Chatterjee's illness and his attempts to get admitted first initially in the SKMMS hospital in Kolkata, eventually having to be shifted to AIIMS Bhubaneswar because the High Court put its foot down?
So basically, at this point in time, yes, the Enforcement Directorate had questioned the intent behind his admission at SSKM Hospital, clearly suggesting that they do not have much faith. They do not have much faith at the SSKM Hospital. They had tried citing previous examples where they indicated that some politicians using their influence might have stayed there, might have gone and gotten some admitted to SSKM Hospital and
gotten themselves admitted to SSKM Hospital, and that could be an act of influence, and otherwise they did not want to give an impression that the person who is accused, he can have the sole discretion of choice of doctors. So if somebody has got any ailment, can be given medical treatment, can be given all the assistance, provided it is being made very clear to the investigating agency. The investigating agency said they are willing to give him all the treatment. They can take him to AIIMS Delhi, they can take him to AIIMS Bhubaneswar, but the choice of doctor cannot be his discretion. So at this point in time, the AIIMS Bhubaneswar has given clean chit to Partha Chatterjee, and AIIMS doctors have clearly suggested that he does not need hospitalization. The chronic medical issue that they are talking about, or he has been talking about, can be treated with basic medicine, and those basic medicine has already been given.
If you could just wait for a moment, let me just